Sponsored by Paradigm Lost. Affordable gaming accessories with a twist.
The legend tells of 3 mystic crystals fated with lack of knowledge. Only the 3 mages, Professor Dex from Phoenix, D20 from Cleveland, and Lore from the Forgotten Realms, have the knowledge to replenish these crystals. This is the DM Toolbox, Tales from the Edge. You know, the more and more I listen to that intro, the more and more hype I get. What's up, Character Sheets? These are your hosts for the day. D20 in the center. To my right,
Professor Dex.
to my left,
Lore.
and this is DM Toolbox. We are hyped today because something new is about to happen.
That's right.
After today, you will never be the same.
Yeah. First time for everything, right?
Go ahead, man. Just go say.
I wasn't going to say anything. Not say anything.
Oh, man.
Well, you might as well say it.
I might as well say today we are going to sit behind the screen for the first time. We are being a DM for the first time. We are sitting down with our notebook, our notepad, our NPCs, everything we have learned to this point, and starting our first game. We are popping that cherry and rolling with it.
Hell yeah. So, what is the first thing you do when you sit down, guys?
Freak the fuck out!
It's going to be that way. The hour before everybody gets there, late, of course. You know what I'm talking about.
You don't think anyone's gonna come?
Yeah. Right when you're like, all right, I'm putting stuff away, everybody's gonna show up.
Yeah.
That's how it is. That's how it is. All right. But when you sit down behind that screen, what is the first thing you guys do?
Oh man. So, like physically or mentally?
Like, you're ready to start that game. You're ready to you're ready to get down to business. Because you sit down at the table, everybody bullshits for at least 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody breaks the ice. Everybody's ready now. The lights dim. Everybody gets kind of quiet. The DM's face is lit up by his, little lamp he's got over here trying to look at his notes in the dark. What is the first thing you do?
Okay. First thing I physically have to do is be aware of where my dice tray is and my actual dice. That's the first thing
So set up. You do like a little setup.
Yeah. So when everyone's talking and everything, I set up my little tray and my dice for the day. I lightweight eavesdrop into people's conversation to see if they're talking about the game or other stuff. You know what I'm saying?
So you got a lot of pregame going on. What is the first thing you do when you're ready to roll dice?
I say the rules of the table.
Exactly. Lore, what do you do when you sit down at the table?
I try to get everyone's attention, but most of the time when I try to get their attention, they're just blathering about random shit that doesn't pertain to my game. And, yeah.
So what specifically do you do to try to get people's attention?
Normally I have to sit there and open up a book in front of them, or I dump out my bag of dice in front of them.
Okay.
Well, I've talked about this before. A great way to get attention is honestly to change the environment. We've talked about environment a lot. We've talked about how I use music to set the mood. Starting the mood it's like when a theater turns down the lights, everybody gets quiet.
Yeah.
That's just a normal human response. So I utilize that in my.
But remember, all of my gaming experience has been at a store where it's loud as hell. and I don't get to control the environment.
It's funny you say that because I learned from that, and I call it my used car spiel. You know what I'm saying? Like I stand up. I'm like, all right, people, welcome to the first time ever to my table. These are my rules, and like everyone's paying attention. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I actually learned to do that spiel from being at that loud store.
I had a lot more of a traditional sort of experience. You know, my first DMing experience was at college, and I was under another GM's wing who, he was an older student, but he was also, like, he had been GMing for a long, long time.
Look at me, I'm Professor Dex, and I had the traditional experience of blah, 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 blah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's why I'm better than you.
Oh! Burn! Sick burn! Alright, shall we all DMs? Dang. I mean, just because I got more dice than any of y'all.
Are you
Liar.
serious?
Liar.
Do you really think that? I have more garbage dice than you have dice. I got this box in my house.
Trash dice.
This is trash dice. Oh my god. No.
Yeah, I picked it up the other day. I'm like 20 pounds of dice.
Oh yeah.
Pounds?
Yes.
Okay, we need to pause this episode as I go and play in this box of 20 pounds of
It's
dice.
like a cat.
Oh, wow. You guys have no idea how big my eyes just got in real life. Oh, wow. Okay, focusing back to the podcast. Okay.
But yeah, I used to have a spiel like you did back when I first started. Mm-hmm. But then I started having regular people show up, so I didn't have to do that as much. I didn't have to tell them, you know, these are the things that you can do to piss me off at the table.
Yeah.
Please don't do them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I got a spiel too, honestly, I really do. And I also have, you know, shamelessly plugged my business every time. Well, I've got these things like plot dice and stuff like that, and you kind of need to know how to use them before the game starts. So it's just something, product that I use. Shameless plug again. But yeah, I honestly like to do the rules, and I also like to add in things like veils. So people often have limits and boundaries to what they're willing to experience. I try to keep my games PG-13 with like maybe a horror element or some sort of gratuitous violence element, depending on who I'm playing with. But, you know, generally speaking, I try to keep it PG-13. And then if I'm starting to broach a topic that someone's uncomfortable with, I have a visual signal that people can give me when things go awry.
Which is?
I have two, which is an X with your arms, or the cut at the neck, kill, you know, stop motion. Okay. And that lets me know, oh, we're broaching a topic that I just need to move on as a GM. Like, for a veil, for instance, is, yeah, sex happened, but we moved on. We did a wipe across the screen.
Yeah.
We moved on to another scene before we saw anything. We don't need to go.
Yeah. The morning after.
Yeah, the morning after. Yeah, because you don't need to go into that detail, especially if it's going to cause someone to not have fun. Because what are we there for?
Here to have fun.
Right. So, yeah, I always start with rules and just house rules, things like that. I'm sure you do something similar.
Yeah, and it's like when we're talking about, like, we're not saying rule one, you can only move 30 feet if you're a large creature or 25 feet if you're small. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, you know, usually if you constantly play the same game, you have your initial rules down. But there's something called house rules that are specific to that DM. For example, there's always controversy about potions. How do you drink a potion? How do you drink a potion? So in my game, if you pull out a potion and hold it, that's a bonus action in Dungeons and Dragons. If you pull out a potion and you drink it, that's a full action. You know, that is how I handle it. Another thing that I do is what happens when you meet the armor class of an enemy or the enemy meets your armor class. My role, if you meet it, you beat it. Mm-hmm. That goes on both sides.
Yep.
So like those are rules that I do. And if I don't know, I take a D6. Even yes, I know, and that's how I bring it.
Yeah.
You know, so those are house rules that I have that not everyone agrees with or does at their table.
Yeah. Actually,
Or
those are very, very close to what the rules are supposed to be.
Mm.
Actually, your armor class ones are on what's supposed to be the potion one is it's an object interaction. A whole other thing.
But that's a good point, though. And the reason why is because some rules, even though they're written as is in the book, people dispute it because a lot of GMs don't use the meet it or beat it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So are we talking about rules as written and rules as intended? Because that's a whole other thing.
It's a whole other thing.
Yeah, and that's why I think D&D 5.5 is coming out in a couple of years, is to fix a lot of the bullshit that Jeremy Crawford has to answer questions about every single day. Literally, he has a Twitter page set up where people can ask him questions.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's called Sage Advice.
Yeah, yep. And he does videos too.
Yep.
But so yeah, what do we expect, guys? Like, when you sit down at the table, you're going to start your game, you're going to get through your exposition. What can you expect from your players?
I don't think that could honestly be said out loud because every single game is going to be different.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's certain expectations that we could have from our players, but it's never going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, like there was a time where I thought it would be cool. Like, all right, this was a story that you guys had to go off to this. You got tricked into going off to this far city. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And you had to take your spouse with you, and your spouse ends up getting kidnapped. So one of my players said, "I want to murder my spouse in the sleep." I'm like, what do I do in this situation? Because he wanted to be the dick of the table. You know what I'm saying? He wanted to be that guy. And that early in my DMing career, I wasn't ready for that much of a curveball. So I kind of freaked out.
Yeah, Laura, is that something similar to what you experienced?
Your
first time DMing. Go back in time.
First time DMing? No, first time DMing one of my longest running sessions or campaigns. I had people sitting there reading the book that I was reading from. I had people pull out the monster manual and tell me how monsters are supposed to be run. I'm like, yes, I understand that.
Now, in the player's defense, did they know how the monsters work?
They literally pulled out a monster manual in front of me and started reading it.
Now, one thing that I did when I first started playing Pathfinder, is I got myself a monster manual. I did the same thing, not knowing it was illegal. Because I was like, oh, this is what a harpy does. No. It has 64 hit points. I could keep track of this. And like, no one knew I had the monster manual. I just got the connotation from everyone and how they were reacting to the battle. Like, I don't think I should be using this book.
So you didn't like pull it out and put it on the table?
No, it was on my lap.
Okay,
it was on my lap.
You know, this kid literally pulled out the monster manual and was like,
"Fun,"
like, on the table.
Blah, 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 blah.
Like, cool. Put that away. You can leave my table.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? I'm like, you can put that monster manual away, or you can leave my table.
Yeah.
And they ended up leaving my table because I wasn't dealing with that
Wow.
Man, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I think every GM can agree. Your first session, and maybe not your last one, will be like this. It's chaos.
Yeah.
It is. Oh my god.
It's just total chaos, and it's because your players are trying to feel out their boundaries.
Yeah.
Even if they're veteran players, they want to feel out their boundaries with you as the DM. Like, what can and can I not do? What's going to upset them? What's going to be fun? It's just going to be chaos. And there's no way to get around that.
Like, I was doing a one shot, and like I was like, okay, you guys start on a beach. You just had a battle with the Minotaur, and they destroyed the bridge, so you can't go back to where you came from. You know, what's your last memory? And everyone did what I asked. There's one guy, I don't understand. What's the story? What's the terrain? What does the beach look like? What are the trees like? And then one of my players was just like, dude, we were in a battle, we got knocked out. Say what you were doing before you got knocked out. And like, I didn't even say it. So like, it irritated the players more than it irritated me. So like, I thought that was funny.
Yeah. And that's just the thing, is, you know, players can be like herding cats. You can't control them, and the more you try to control them, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's always easier to control them after they do something stupid.
Yes. You gotta hold on loosely, but don't let go, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna kill you.
What? I think it's a 38 special piece
See,
of
y'all
advice.
doing that underground shit. No inside jokes that I'm not a part of on the show. I'm tired of y'all speaking in code around me. Shit.
It's a song. It's a song.
By 38 special.
Yay.
So yeah, herding cats. But so what do we do when we bite off more than we can chew, though? You know, we got to guide the players.
Define bite off more than you could chew.
So your players, they're going to get hype.
Yeah.
They're going to be bouncing around like, you know, 5-year-olds at Chuck E. Cheese.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Like, no, I'm serious. Like, it's
No, I know what
like.
you're talking about.
And, well, they're going to want to go fight a dragon. They're going to want to, like, do stuff that their characters are not capable of doing.
Yeah.
How do you not bite off more than you can chew? How do you curb those expectations? Because, honestly, they're just going to be real rowdy. What do you do?
You show them the awesome destructive power that a dragon has, and you kill one of them in front of them, and you say, don't do it. I told you not to. Bad. You get out the newspaper and you hit them on the head with it.
Get the squirt bottle.
I would, if they're so hyped to do that, I will make the path there so treacherous that they're like, this is a bad idea.
Well,
I have an example because I don't use a traditional D&D monster manual because I was taught not to, because people learn that monster manual. You know what I'm saying?
Very wise to teach.
So, I had a party and there was a goblin boss. I'm like, oh, it's just a goblin. I'm gonna attack him. Well, this goblin was CR3 with a poison tip sword. One shot, he was down. Everyone was like, oh.
Oops.
Okay.
And yep, that is exactly what I did with Dark Knights.
Oh. Okay. And
then they can absorb each other and get stronger. Uh-oh. One was hard enough.
But see, if I were in your shoes and I made the way they're difficult, they'd just be bitching about it the entire time. And they'd still slog through it. And they'd be like, this is terrible. I hate this. Man, I'm like, maybe don't go that way?
Well, see,
Stop sign. Should we go this way? Stop sign. I don't know. You could if you wanted to. Hint, don't do it.
I mean, it's... Okay. One thing that I do with... I have a specific question that I ask my players. And you guys have played at my table, so you know I asked this. Are you sure? Which means, are you sure you want to partake in this movement, which will end up 100% bad?
Now, there are two things that you truly know when you have done something wrong. When the GM says, You can certainly try.
Oh, no! No!
Or, no, you didn't. No, my character... No, you didn't.
I just... No, you didn't.
But I rolled it. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Put the dice down. Put it away.
I got a 26, though. That's like, do you really want your 26?
Because you got a 30. What? You got a 30. But no, you give them the look, and then they finally get it. Oh, shut up now.
Or the other people around are like, you got a 30. You're like, 30? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that fudging, man. Sometimes you gotta do it.
Yeah. And then it's funny when you do it to benefit the players. Because there's a time I just had some stupid goblins and they're like, I got a 4. All right, 6 is dead. No, I got a 4. It's like, you rolled a 6, it's dead. But I rolled a 4. And then someone next to them was like, you rolled a 6, it's dead. Tell them how you killed it.
I don't want to be in this encounter anymore.
Exactly.
This is a goblin encounter that has taken 45 minutes!
Yeah. It's like, okay, fine, you rolled a 4. The goblin turns around and looks at you. Natural 20, natural 20, natural 20. You're dead. And now we move on. The goblin falls over from exhaustion.
So, yeah, I mean, that's actually a form of course correction. You're kind of forcing the story to move on because it's not fun anymore, you know? And again, if you have stopped having fun, something's wrong.
Yeah.
You're doing something wrong. And, you know, honestly, I think something to really point out here is that players do not want to be guided. Most of the time, if players feel like they're being guided, I know, not all, but a lot of the time they're going to feel like they don't have agency, and they're going to buck back at you.
I would like to challenge that remark. I feel players don't mind being guided, but do mind being railroaded. Being guided, like, okay, it's confusing. Hey, you see something shiny in the tree. Okay, fucking fine, I got a clue. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. As opposed to being railroaded is, you walk to the oak tree.
But you always got that guy who the minute they sense that they're being guided at all and it's not a free-form sandbox world, they buck against any sort of intention you have to stick to a plot.
I agree with that.
They'll focus on the tavern and getting drunk and you know, going to a strip club. That kind of thing. I've seen that before.
Yes, I mean always. But I feel guiding and railroading are two different things.
They absolutely are. I'm just trying to say is that there are some players that don't want to be guided at all.
Agreed.
Most players, I will agree with you though. Most players like, hey, can we have something to do?
Yeah.
You know, you're gonna have to do that as the GM. You have to kind of set that stage. If you don't want to start in a tavern, but the players do, I mean, there's not much you can do about that.
Yeah.
And are you really going to wait 45 minutes for them to leave the tavern to start your plot? No, just switch up what you had written to happen
incorporate the tavern.
Yeah. So you got to be flexible your first time, especially.
Mm-hmm.
Once the plot gets going, though, really the more invested they get into that plot, the more they're going to kind of want that plot to happen.
Now, also, you have to be flexible on your first time, but also keep your foot down that this is your story. You're the DM. You run what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, you're God at your own table.
Yeah.
You know, keep that in mind.
So if you want purple flying monkeys and they're like, purple flying monkeys don't exist in Dungeons and Dragons. Well, they exist at my table.
Do not question the GM.
The God of gods.
So, yeah. And, all right, so let's get down to brass tacks. What happens if your game's a failure? What happens... Now, we've talked about failure with games, but let's get real. Sometimes games just don't vibe. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Okay, so there's 3 ways a game doesn't vibe. When you, the DM, are trying to tell a story and you're just so fucking irritated with how your players are responding, you're just like, I hate this. I want to go into the trunk of my car and push it off of a cliff.
And you might have players that feel the same way.
There's players that's just like, alright, I'm just going through the motions. I don't have to be home till later. Blah, blah, blah. They're looking at their phone. They're just uninterested. And then there's... And this is why
Toxic.
I don't like vets at my tables. There's the... But what you should do is... Oh, that is lighting a torch under my ass. Oh, man.
I'd like to add on to that, though.
Please do.
Toxic players.
Oh!
I have had toxic players at my table, man, and it'll ruin it for everybody. And that's the thing. You have to, as a GM, you have one of those games that don't go right. You got to reflect on it. Why didn't it go right? All right? Don't sit there and blame yourself. You're a first-time GM. Don't sit there and blame yourself. A good GM reflects.
And reflecting, one thing I do at the end of each session, I ask my players, how did I do?
Yep.
Pluses and minuses.
Feedback, man.
Pluses and minuses.
But unfortunately, you will get that toxic player. And I think those other issues you brought up can be mitigated. Unfortunately, the toxic player can't.
No, yeah. And there's your it's impossible not to have a toxic player.
And you think you can outsmart them at your table? No, because there's nothing you can do with this just negative energy at your table. They can just ruin everything for everybody every single time. You have to weed that out.
I was a toxic player one time. I didn't even know it. There's a player at a game I was in. He was just like, if they play, I'm not playing anymore. And I was like, I will happily leave. I will happily leave because this is a game about imaginary people and plastic dice. And if your life is so crumped up with me being in it, playing this game, I would be more than happy to leave.
But you'll feel it. You'll feel it when a player is kind of bucking against you. Just the way that they play. And veteran players can be the worst at this because they know how to subtly kind of throw stones in your path. And honestly, my recommendation is you got to cut that shit out before it's too late.
Yeah,
because it will spread to your other players. It'll break up the whole table.
And it's just like individuals kind of know their play style. Mm-hmm. Like, I am not a serious person. I can never take my character seriously. I will never be the leader of the pack. I'll never be the knight in shining armor. I'm a goofy player. I'm a goofy person. You know what I'm saying? So, if I'm playing with, like, really serious people who don't know how to laugh at things, like, I'm not going to excel in that group. That group's not for me. You know what I'm saying? And also, one thing, like, I am above 39. And when I play with characters that are around 21 to, 25 with a younger mindset, like, it's just a little hard. It's a little harder for me. And I'm not trying to be ageist because I've played with multiple younger people than me that are fantastic. You know what I'm saying? But, like, sometimes it's harder for me to
make that connection,
accept their juvenile ideas. And this is coming from the person that just said they like being silly. It's just like...
No, I know what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
There's silly and then there's immature.
Okay, it's...
Yes.
Okay, and honestly, that it doesn't have a lot to do with age either. It really does have to do with once you're a veteran DM. I do agree with what you're saying. But when you are a veteran GM, you will find that every new player does the same shit and thinks they're unique. And nobody else has made a wizard before. Alright? Like, I'm sorry. And kids will do the same thing. Kids, but on a deeper level, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, an adult playing D&D, they're gonna be like, I'm gonna be a sword dancer. And no one else has ever been that before.
Right.
Like, you're gonna have that. Like, okay, I'm gonna play the character with amnesia. You're gonna have that with new players. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen.
I'm gonna play the Mass Effect hero of the war character, battle scarred, whatever bullshit.
Yeah.
Ask me how I know. I had a friend who did that for all of their characters. Every single character was the same.
I can't do that. I actually don't know how to do that.
How to make the same character?
No. Not how to make the same character. How to make the same character.
Yeah.
Like,
it's called having no imagination.
Oh, man.
And you're gonna get players like that, and just...
I mean, can you imagine, like, Kiki Mañana and Princess Maz, like, the same? That would be terrible.
Aren't they the same? Oh, I'm kidding.
All the burns are going around.
I know! Shoot!
Dang!
Kiki Mañana, Princess Maz. I mean, shoot.
So you're going to have players with characters that don't work. You're going to have players that have different motivations. And age can play into that because it's going to be like, okay, yeah, I know you saw that on the latest cartoon that you just watched. It's been played out.
Now, I want to piggyback on what you just said.
Yeah.
You said players that don't work. They may not work for you.
That's a good point.
They may not work for you because I was in a campaign where it was very pop culture-y, right? And we were very obviously in a Five Nights at Freddy's setting, but we weren't told out loud we were in a Five Nights at Freddy's setting. I was like, oh, okay, this is Five Nights at Freddy's. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, like, I tried to turn off D20's brain, and have my character's brain like, okay, so I hear this, I'm getting freaked out. And, like, everyone was acting accordingly that they knew what was going on. I was just like, I don't know what's going on. And I kept getting irritated more and more with the more pop culture-ness because it was drawing me out. It's like there was a Death Star, and then we found the One Ring, and then stormtroopers came, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, here's your original idea card. Use it, please.
I feel you. I really feel you.
Yeah. So like that was not a setting for me.
You're right, and honestly, you can't please everybody.
No.
And that's I actually touched on this subject in a couple episodes past, where you really have to make sure that the game you're playing matches your players. Like if your players want to play a steampunk, Victorian age, old British kind of game,
yeah,
don't give them a sci-fi game.